if you got a gaming laptop but you only have 8 gigs of RAM, I think it's time you upgrade to 16. Because in today's video, I'll be doing a split screen comparison so I can show you the numbers, and then I can show you how your RAM affects your CPU and then affects your GPU. And then at the end, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you my benchmarks where I had no recording software, and you're going to see there is a market difference. So let's get to it. Right, now as you're going to be able to see in this example, on the left hand side I've got 8 gigs, on the right hand side I've got 16 gigs. So straight off the bat, if you look at the CPU, you're going to notice that the percentage usage is much higher because there's a bit of a bottleneck. And the reason there's a bottleneck is because we only got 8 gigs of RAM. It's trying to push in more data off the hard drive onto the RAM. And because there's a bottleneck on the RAM, bottlenecks the CPU. And then what happens is, because there's a bottleneck on the CPU, your GPU is never getting the same amount of wattage. So what you're going to be noticing is that the wattage on the GPU is always lower if you only got one stick of 8 gig RAM. And just to reiterate, this is specifically for laptops, entry-level gaming laptops and medium-range gaming laptops. Because to save costs, manufacturers sell a gaming laptop with 8 gigs of RAM, and that's generally one stick of 8 gig RAM in single channel, and then it is up to you to go and buy another 8 gig stick of RAM to obviously have dual channel, but then also upgrade from 8 gig to 16 gig. And as you'll be able to see, some games are bigger than others, but there is quite a market change. Generally, it is the more RAM a game uses, the bigger difference is going to be. If the game uses slightly less RAM, you know, like 6 gigs or 4 gigs, there's not going to be a major difference. Then we're talking about a dual channel versus single channel performance difference. But if a game does generally use more than 8 gigs of RAM, that's where you're going to see the most difference. Anyways, enjoy the last bit of the benchmark, and then at the end of this video I'm going to just go over the results of the benchmarks without recording. Right, so as I mentioned, I was going to show you the benchmark results without recording software. So here we go. For 8 gigs over to 6 games. For Spider-Man Miles Morales, I got the average benchmark of 45 FPS. And then for 16 gigabytes, I got 75 FPS. So as you can see, there's a 30 FPS difference right there. Spider-Man Remastered, the benchmark I did for 8 gigs, I got 54 FPS. And then I got 89 FPS for 16 gigs. So as you can see, there's a 35 FPS difference right there. Ryzen Zero Dawn, I just did the straight up in-game benchmark, and for 8 gigs I got 68 FPS, and then for 16 gigs I got 88 FPS. Days Gone, that little benchmark I run at the beginning of the game, for 8 gigs I got 60 FPS, and then for 16 gigs I got 67 FPS. God of War, not massive big difference, but for 8 gigs I get 61 FPS, and then for 16 gigs I get 66 FPS. And then for Control, probably the smallest difference, because it is so GPU heavy and it doesn't use a lot of RAM. For the 8 gigs I get an average benchmark of 54 FPS, and then for the 16 gigs I get 61 FPS, so 7 FPS difference. But yeah guys, you can pause this, have a look at the results, but you can see if you bought a gaming laptop and you only got 8 gigs of RAM, it's probably only one 8 gig stick, so it's not a dual channel, so you're already losing a little bit of performance there. So I'd highly advise getting another 8 gig stick, because then you got dual channel, and then also I'd say 99% of the games use between 8 and 16 gigs, so RAM is never going to be an issue. Because you must remember, when you play a game, your operating system's running in the background. There's a whole bunch of other things happening in the background. So if you only got 8 gigs and the game's minimum requirement is 8 gigs, it's going to be putting a strain on your system. Other than that, guys, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to smash the like button. If you haven't subscribed to the channel just yet, please be so kind as to subscribe. Other than that, have a fantastic day. It's people like you. Cheers.